Since women stop being able to have babies, what's left to hope for?
Why are women infertile? Some say it's genetic experiments, pollution. Why do you think we can't make babies anymore?
Set in a near future that feels uncomfortably close, Children of Men presents a world quietly collapsing under the weight of infertility. Humanity has not produced a child in nearly 2 decades, and the absence of future generations has drained societies of patience, empathy, and purpose. Governments no longer speak about progress, they speak about survival. Nations fracture under waves of refugees, borders harden, and violence becomes routine rather than exceptional. The film treats this condition not as spectacle but as atmosphere, allowing the audience to absorb despair the way the characters do, slowly, constantly, and without relief. The story unfolds through the eyes of Theo Faron, a man who once believed in political change and collective action, but has since retreated into emotional detachment. His personal grief mirrors the world's condition, loss without hope of renewal. Theo does not begin as a hero. He is tired, skeptical, and content to endure, rather than resist. This grounding is crucial because the film is not about destiny calling to a chosen savior, but about ordinary people being forced into extraordinary responsibility when the future demands it. When Theo is drawn back into the orbit of activism through Julian, his former partner, the narrative shifts from passive observation to urgent movement. Julian represents a version of the world that still believes resistance matters, even when victory seems impossible. Through her, the film reintroduces the idea that moral action is meaningful regardless of outcome. This reawakening does not come with optimism. It comes with risk, betrayal, and the constant reminder that ideals are fragile in a society built on fear. At the center of the story is Key, a young refugee whose pregnancy defies the biological finality that has defined the age. The film handles this revelation with restraint, avoiding grand speeches or mythic framing. Key is not a symbol chosen by prophecy. She is a frightened, sarcastic, and resilient young woman whose condition places her in constant danger. Her pregnancy is both miracle and liability, hope and death sentence, depending on who controls her fate. The journey to protect Key becomes a cross-section of this broken world. Military checkpoints, detention camps, underground resistance groups, and abandoned cities all blur together, suggesting that the structures meant to provide order have instead normalized cruelty. The state claims to offer safety, yet operates through mass incarceration and public executions. Revolutionary groups speak of justice, yet are willing to exploit Key's child as political leverage. The film refuses to offer a clean moral binary, emphasizing that power corrupts even those who claim to fight it. Visually, the film reinforces its themes through an unbroken sense of immediacy. Long takes follow characters through chaos without cuts, forcing the audience to remain present during violence rather than observe it from a comfortable distance. Explosions, gunfire, and panic unfold in real time, denying relief or spectacle. This approach does more than showcase technical mastery. It reinforces the idea that in this world, suffering does not pause, and there is no external perspective from which things look manageable. The performance by Clive Owen grounds the film emotionally. His portrayal of Theo avoids melodrama, relying instead on subtle expressions of fatigue, guilt, and reluctant resolve. As Theo's role shifts from escort to guardian, his transformation is not marked by speeches or sudden bravery, but by persistence. He continues forward not because he believes everything will be fixed, but because stopping would mean surrendering what remains of his humanity. Supporting characters deepen the film's emotional texture. Michael Caine provides warmth and irony as Jasper, a man who has chosen kindness and humor as acts of defiance against despair. Jasper's home feels like a sanctuary, not because it is safe, but because it is humane. His relationship with his disabled wife illustrates a form of love that persists without expectation of the future, reinforcing the film's argument that meaning does not require permanence. The political dimension of the film is ever-present, but never didactic. News broadcasts play in the background, propaganda slogans line walls, and public announcements reduce tragedy to routine. Immigration is framed as invasion, refugees as contagion. These elements are not explained or debated. They are simply accepted by the society portrayed, making them more disturbing. The film trusts the audience to recognize parallels without instruction, allowing discomfort to arise naturally. As Theo and Key move closer to their destination, the film tightens its focus on sacrifice. Allies fall away not in heroic poses, but in sudden, chaotic violence. Death arrives without ceremony, reinforcing the randomness of survival in this world. Each loss strips away layers of protection until only intention remains to get Key and the child to safety, even if the world beyond remains unchanged. The climax unfolds amid urban warfare, where civilians, soldiers, and rebels collide in an environment stripped of moral clarity. In one of the film's most powerful moments, the sound of a crying baby halts violence temporarily. Guns lower, faces soften, and, for a brief moment, the possibility of collective recognition emerges. This pause is not presented as a permanent transformation, but as evidence that humanity's capacity for reverence still exists, buried beneath fear. Direction by Alfonso Cuarón emphasizes realism over spectacle, allowing the emotional weight to carry the narrative. The camera does not instruct the audience on how to feel. It observes, follows, and endures alongside the characters. This restraint makes the moments of beauty, laughter, care, birth stand out with extraordinary power against the surrounding bleakness. The film's depiction of hope is deliberately fragile. There is no guarantee that the child will save humanity, no assurance that systems will change, and no promise that cruelty will end. Instead, hope is framed as an act rather than an outcome. Protecting the child becomes meaningful, not because it will fix everything, but because it asserts that the future is worth choosing, even when evidence suggests otherwise. By the end, the story resists closure. It does not show a healed world or a restored society. What it offers instead is continuity, the idea that as long as life persists, so does responsibility. The final moments emphasize transition rather than resolution, leaving the audience with questions rather than comfort. What makes the film endure is its refusal to simplify despair or romanticize resistance. It acknowledges exhaustion, compromise, and failure while still insisting that individual actions matter. In a world where systems have failed, decency becomes revolutionary. The film suggests that the measure of civilization is not its technological achievements or political stability, but its willingness to protect the vulnerable when doing so offers no immediate reward. Through its intimate focus and expansive implications, the story becomes less about infertility and more about abandonment, of empathy, of accountability, of shared destiny. The absence of children is symbolic of a broader spiritual barrenness, one that cannot be cured by biology alone. The child represents possibility, but it is human choice that determines whether possibility becomes reality. Ultimately, the film stands as a meditation on perseverance without illusion. It asks whether people can continue to act morally when the future is uncertain and rewards are absent. In presenting a world that has lost its reason to hope, it challenges the audience to consider what sustains meaning when optimism is no longer credible. The legacy of the film lies in its relevance. Its warnings are not tied to a specific year or event, but to patterns of behavior that repeat whenever fear replaces solidarity. By grounding its dystopia in recognizable social dynamics, it ensures that the story remains unsettling long after the final scene fades. Rather than offering answers, the film leaves viewers with responsibility. It does not ask whether the future will be saved, it asks who is willing to carry it, protect it, and accept the cost of doing so. In that question, the film finds its enduring power, reminding us that the future is not guaranteed by progress, but earned through care, sacrifice, and the refusal to look away.